special one because this is our very first on-site version of In the Hot Seat. So this is really cool, and our very first test subject, if you will, is going to be Nick Sanchez, who is the winner of the Fresh from Florida 250 at Daytona. And he's the driver, of course, of the number 2 Gainbridge Chevrolet Silverado, fielded by Rev Racing. And it's a really great honor to have you here, Nick, to be our first hot seat interview of the year. So before we get started, how are you doing today?
We're doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you around, and I gotta say, man, I know we talked about it in the Zoom a while back, but I still have to imagine that the victory at Daytona has to be like a lingering, happy feeling for you, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I leave the race and, I kind of put that in the memory bank and leave the trophy on the shelf and try to go get more. But yeah, I guess I'm a winner in the series, and now that I know that, right, I guess it makes the other ones, it makes putting yourself in position to win a little bit easier.
Absolutely. The thing is that you are coming off a really strong season last year. You almost got to the championship 4, had a little bit of bad luck at Homestead, Miami. So knowing that you could make a run at the championship 4 and haven't been a winner, what are some of the takeaways from last year that you're looking to apply this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think just winning, right? Like, last year I was focused on the championship 4, but also in the back of my head I was like, do I really deserve to be there even without winning? And, it's crazy to think about it because, you take the championship 4 without a win, but in my head I'm like, I need a win to kind of prove that I am a championship contender. And last year, like, we tied for points, and if you look at my season and the amount of points I gave up, and I mean, I think I started the playoffs with like 3 points, so I'm already 2 ahead of where I was last year, so I'm already a little bit out of a hole I was in last year, so it's kind of nice to have that this early on and get that out of the way, and now I can focus on putting myself in position to run for a championship.
It seems like you guys are making a good run at it for sure, because like you said in that Zoom a while back, you're like, now that I won Daytona, we can pretty much just go for wins. We don't have to be conservative. How relaxing is that feeling, knowing like if you may have a margin for error, like what happened last weekend, that you could go and be like, what, I've got Coda coming up.
Yeah, I mean, in my eyes, right, I still want to point my way to a regular season title because that's worth a lot of points, and I'm not going to discount the kind of things that does for you in the playoffs, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about points at the moment. I think last week, right, I was racing for a win, but in the process, I collected, I think, 17 stage points. So I think if you do one thing, you'll kind of take care of the other, right? And I think, my team every week competing up front, racing for wins, we're naturally going to gain a lot of points. But when it comes time to make a decision, we could be more aggressive than others.
And speaking of decisions, you have a great decision maker atop that pit box in Bono Manion, who's got a lot of experience in the sport. What's it like to have his wisdom and knowledge atop the pit box to guide you along during the season?
Yeah, it's pretty big. Obviously he has a lot of accolades in the sport. A lot of wins in Cup, Xfinity, some Xfinity championships. So he knows how to get it done, and he's made the Final Four many times with Zane in a truck. He's won with many drivers in a truck. So he's done everything, right? And this to him is nothing new. It's new to me, right? Winning at this level, but it's not new to him. And for that, right, he puts a lot of, not pressure, but he has a high expectation for myself to keep on improving and getting better. But I think that comes with having a high-profile crew chief like Bono.
And speaking of Bono, what is a funny Bono story that you have so far from this year?
Man, I don't really have any funny stories. I mean, we're only I think, what is this, the 5th race? So,
something like that.
Maybe at the end of the year I'll tell you a funny story, but for now I really don't have any.
That's fair. Well, speaking of the fact that we're here in the series only road course race, which is a weird thing because I feel like the series is pretty much oval only. Do you view this opportunity as like, oh, you know what, I can go balls to the wall to this track?
Yeah, it's definitely, I like road racing because it's just kind of my background. I don't have a lot of experience, but I also have a lot of experience. It's kind of a weird dynamic. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a race where you're racing a couple people. Like, I discount a lot of them, but I pretty much know who I'm going to be racing for the win, hopefully. And it kind of puts you in a weird mindset, right? Because you're not door-to-door racing to the whole field. You're racing strategy. You're racing a certain amount of people, and it's just kind of a different set of cards you're playing with today.
And absolutely, I mean, what's the keys do you think to get around Coda, given that the restart zone's pushed all the way back?
I mean, you just got to be a polished driver in every aspect of this racetrack. Road racing's a lot of braking, and you just got to know the dynamic of the course and where to make time up and where you can give time up, because this track is probably the most technical road course on the schedule for all of the national series. So the best road racers, in my opinion, are going to rise to the top here.
And you have a really good road course racer. In fact, he's kind of a quasi teammate this weekend with Connor Zilish. Are you going to lean on him for some advice this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, well, no, we're competing, right? You know, we're in the same Josh Wise program, so we get the same advice. Obviously, he has a lot of experience here, but you want to lean on him. And it's kind of weird, right? He's 17, leaning on a 17-year-old, but he has a lot of experience. So, you know, I've asked him a couple questions, but at the same time, like, I want to keep the dynamic that we're competing against each other, right? You know, I don't want to give up anything, and I don't want him to give up anything to me. So we'll see.
You're going to keep my Hot Wheels, he gets to keep his Hot Wheels, basically.
Yeah, we're going to compete.
That sounds fair to me, for sure. I'm kind of curious, because I never got a chance to ask you this. Of course, growing up in southern Florida, I'm just curious, who were some drivers you looked up to growing up as a kid down there?
Really no drivers from Florida. I mean, there's really no, like, short tracks in Miami, even, like, the racing scene in Miami, right? Like, you race at Homestead Miami Speedway once a year, and the people aren't even from there. I mean, people that I was fans of growing up, Sebastian Vettel and Dale Earnhardt Jr. So nobody from Florida, like a total disconnect from racing down there, in my opinion.
That's interesting that you have like an F1 inspiration and also Dale Jr. I know obviously Sebastian's pretty hard to get a hold of, but have you met Dale before?
I've met him, I think, once or twice. Nothing crazy, but yeah.
That's awesome. I hope he gets you on the Dale Jr. download. So, I mean, this is kind of an audition, wouldn't you say?
I guess so.
Not that we're getting to that point yet, but we'll try. I'm kind of curious, though, because you've raced with Max Siegel pretty much in your entire racing career. What's been the best advice you've gotten from him throughout your life?
I think stay loyal, right, and just work hard. And I like to think I've done both, right? You know, even in times of uncertainty, I've kind of stayed loyal to Max, and it's all worked out. And, you know, me, I just kind of try to put my head down and work hard and let everything else speak for itself.
That's fair enough for me, for sure. I know you're really close with your family, so I'm curious how they inspired you or empowered you throughout this journey in NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't know anything about racing. I mean, if it wasn't for me right now, they could care less about racing, in my opinion. But through all that, through all the unknowns, and really them not knowing anything about racing, they continued to support me, and they saw my passion for racing. And yeah, they had my backs 100% and still do. And honestly, without them, I would definitely not be where I am.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm sure they're really proud of how you've come along, to say the least. Now, a couple more questions before we wrap things up. If you were stuck on a deserted island for the rest of your life, what songs would you play to kind of get by?
Probably nothing. I'm not a big song guy.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'd probably throw away whatever audio player I had and just figure it out. Right?
Oh, wow. So you're just going to sit in silence?
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do?
Oh my
You're either going to make it out with a song or not.
Now, I know that you don't have a nickname yet, but one of our writers suggested you be called Saint Nick. How would you feel about that nickname?
People call me many names. I'd say my nickname's Nick.
That's fair enough. Hopefully, we can't say the stuff that's explicitive, but, you know.
Yeah, hey, people say what they want.
That's fair. Do you want to say anything else to your fans before we wrap things up?
Enjoy the race.
Sounds good. Nick Sanchez here in the hot seat. You can catch this on our podcast and on our website at thepodiumfinish.net and on my official YouTube channel. So if you like, click, and subscribe, you can see Nick on our channel. Thanks so much, Nick. I appreciate it.
Thank you.